A woman rescued a wounded man in the frozen forest. But 3 hours later, a silent tribe stood before her cabin. None of them spoke, because some answers can only be given in silence. Don't miss this extraordinary story. Subscribe now and keep watching. While the snow fell slowly, silence swallowed the world. Elisa moved through the forest, feeling more lost with every step. She wrapped her thick wool coat tightly around herself. Her breath turned to mist in the cold air, disappearing like memories she tried to erase from her past. She rested the axe on her shoulder. Her eyes were steady, but her mind was already drifting somewhere far away. It was a year ago, when people started blaming her, when they whispered half-blood behind her back. She hid in the little cabin her family left behind. She didn't explain anything to anyone. She didn't speak at all. Instead of answering, she buried herself in silence. Silence had protected her just like nature was now. That morning, when she went out to gather firewood, she didn't have any special plans. But her feet took her unconsciously to the old riverbed. The snow had almost covered it, but if you looked closely, you could spot bare tracks. Elisa was careful, and that's why she saw them. The tracks were fresh. Side-by-side paw prints told of a struggling life. Her instincts told her to turn back, but she stepped forward instead. Then she heard a moan. It wasn't the wind, and it wasn't the growl of an animal. It was a human, someone hurt and alone. She moved faster but stayed quiet. Through the thick trees, she came to a clearing and saw disaster. A huge brown bear, its fur stained with blood and snow, had stretched out a paw. And just a few meters away, a man lay half-buried in the snow. He was young. His chest rose and fell in rough, uneven breaths. There was a deep gash on his thigh. His face was almost unrecognizable from the snow and blood, but he was still alive. Elisa didn't think. Thinking meant hesitating. She acted on survival instinct. She hurled her basket of wood at the bear with all her strength. Then she started running through the snow. The bear was startled, then charged after her in a frenzy. Elisa grabbed a branch, shouted at the top of her lungs, and ran uphill. As the bear's heavy body sped up, the ground beneath it began to break apart. Elisa didn't stop when she reached the edge of the ravine. Just as the bear lunged, the ground gave way. The bear tumbled down with snow and rocks. There was nothing left behind but emptiness. Elisa stood still for a few seconds. Her chest heaved as she caught her breath, hands on her knees, heart pounding in her ears. But her mind was still on the man lying in the snow. She ran back. The man was still alive, but unconscious. His body seemed almost fused with the earth. Elisa knelt down, brushed the snow from his face, and looked at him. His skin was a warm copper color. There were small beads in his braided hair that fell over his shoulder. Elisa whispered, "Comanche." She paused for a moment. She could have run away, but she didn't. She bent down, slid her arm under his, and hauled his body over her shoulder. He was heavy. The snow was heavier, but Elisa didn't give up. She dragged, rested, then dragged again, carrying him all the way to her cabin. In that cold forest, it took a lone woman 3 whole hours to bring a wounded warrior home. 3 hours where her body forgot its limits, and her soul broke free from the past to write itself anew. When she finally got to the cabin, her hands were numb and purple. She laid the man by the fire. Her trembling fingers, remembering old methods her mother had taught her, stripped off his wet clothes. She cleaned his wound, tore strips from old linen curtains, and made a bandage. She built up the fire. She brewed some willow bark tea and poured it on his cracked lips. That night, the man didn't say a word, but Elisa sat by his side for hours, sometimes staring into the fire, sometimes at his wound, sometimes at her own memories. And in the morning, when she stepped outside, she saw new tracks on the fresh snow. Hoof prints circling around, not coming closer, but making their presence known. The Comanches had come. They had found him. The cabin was still warm, but Elisa felt frozen inside. The tracks she'd seen that morning told her everything was about to change. Hoofprints from horses, forming a circle around the cabin. They hadn't come closer, but they'd watched. It was a warning, or maybe a hesitation. The men hadn't come back, but they hadn't left either. Elisa closed the door quietly, leaning against it. Her eyes went unconsciously to the man lying by the fire. He hadn't spoken since the night before. His breathing was still heavy, his wound still fresh. But he was alive. Elisa knelt and placed a damp cloth on his forehead. His eyelids fluttered. At last, he opened them silently. His dark, deep eyes slowly focused on her. "Who?" he croaked. "My name is Elisa," she said softly. "I found you in the woods. You ran into a bear. I drove it off. I brought you here." He closed his eyes and turned his head slightly, as if wanting to slip back into an old dream. "What's your name?" Elisa asked. After a brief silence, he answered, "Liam." For a while, neither of them said anything. There was only the crackle of the fire, the howl of the wind outside, and inside, the quiet rhythm of a life being rewritten. By noon, a gentle snowfall had started outside. When Elisa went out to fetch fresh water, she saw a silhouette standing in the shadow of a tree. It was close by on horseback. He hadn't moved, just stood there, watching her. Elisa didn't say a word. She filled her bucket, lowered her head, and went back inside. "They're watching me," she said quietly to Liam. "I think your tribe is here." He opened his eyes, tried to sit up a little, but the pain quickly forced him back down. Elisa slid her arm under his and helped him sit up slowly, then handed him the water. "I carried you for 3 hours," she said with a small smile. "Now it's your turn to make a bit of an effort." Liam didn't reply, but there was a spark of gratitude in his eyes. "You helped me." "What?" Elisa looked away. After a moment's hesitation, she spoke. "Because snow doesn't hide blood. Because dying alone is even quieter than silence." Liam turned his gaze to her, staring for a long, silent moment. Then he nodded. "My clan. We'll see. They won't understand." "I know," Elisa said. "But they trusted me. They didn't come. Not yet." Just then, a sound came from outside, a faint snap, followed by the soft rumble of hooves riding on the wind. Elisa moved to the window. A shadow slipped between the trees. Then another. Suddenly, dozens of figures, women, elders, young warriors, stepped out onto the snow, circling the cabin. They carried no weapons, but their silence was heavy enough. Elisa took a deep breath. She approached the door but didn't open it. Liam called out, "This is what they're waiting for. Open the door." "I have nothing but an axe," Elisa whispered. Liam glanced at the window. Sometimes a weapon is just someone looking you in the eye, without turning away. Elisa cracked the door open. Standing before her was an old man, white hair and braids, his face marked with deep lines. A fox fur was draped over his shoulders. Next to him stood a younger woman, her eyes just as fierce, and behind them, the waiting warriors. Elisa didn't say a word, but opened the door fully. She glanced back at Liam lying behind her, then lifted her head. "I only saved him," she said, her voice mixing with the cold air. "And when none of you came, he was still alive." The young woman stepped forward, scanning Elisa's face, then flicking her eyes toward Liam inside. "Your courage isn't unfamiliar to us, but this was his trial, and you touched it." "I gave not just my hand, but my life," Elisa replied. The woman bowed her head. The old man said nothing, but whispered a single word in his own language. The group began to drift away back into the shadows, their horses trampling the snow. But this time, they didn't scatter. They stayed nearby, waiting. When the door closed again, Elisa leaned her head against the wall. Her heart was pounding. Liam was staring out the window. "They didn't leave me behind," he said. "That's good. But not for you." In a hushed voice, Elisa asked, "What happens now?" "They're not just watching me anymore. They're watching you too," Liam said, "to see how long you can last." And for the first time, Elisa truly shivered, not from the cold outside, but from the trial that had just begun inside. "I never wanted anything," she said. "Not as love, not your approval, not for my name to be debated in the middle of this night." She let the medallion drop to the ground. "But I saved a life, and if the price for that is judgment, then here I am. Bring your questions. I'm not afraid, because when I was alone, and even now, I have always done what's right." Silence fell, so deep that even the fire's crackle was lost for a while. Then the old leader nodded. "Sometimes, it's strangers who remind us most of what we've forgotten," he said. "This woman, she may have saved not just a life, but a longing as well." No one applauded. No one shouted. But the circle gradually broke apart. It felt like a quiet acceptance, at least for now. Liam came to Elisa's side. He didn't reach for her hand, but his eyes said more than hands ever could. "You're not alone anymore." But in that moment, Elisa realized something. The real question wasn't that. The real question was, living with someone now, was it more dangerous than being alone? and that answer would come with the next morning. Morning arrived without breaking the silence of the previous night. Snow hung heavy from the edges of the roof, and the forest seemed to breathe again. But the tension inside Elisa didn't fade. The fire circle from the night before had ended, maybe, but judgment had not. She was still being watched with every step, every word weighed. Liam was able to walk on his own now. The heaviness remained in his leg, but his eyes were brighter. In the cabin, he was slowly carving out a corner that belonged to him. Elisa noticed this change, though she couldn't quite name it. It wasn't closeness. It was something deeper, maybe sameness. Two solitudes, under one roof. Around midday, strange sounds behind the cabin made Elisa flinch. They weren't animals, these were human footsteps, moving forward with a heavy, unfamiliar determination. When she opened the door, she didn't see a child, but a ghost from her past. Red-haired, wrinkled face, but the eyes familiar. A threat Elisa knew well, Marcus Halden, a former deputy from town. The man who'd looked her in the eye on the night her father died and said, "Some blood never washes clean." Elisa looked at him without squinting. "Why are you here?" Marcus smiled. "I heard a half-breed saved a Comanche in the woods, and now the whole tribe has gathered around her. And you're still alive. That doesn't seem fair to me." Elisa's eyes flicked to her axe, but she didn't reach for it. Marcus didn't just carry weapons, he carried chaos. "Go back," she said. "There's nothing here for you." Marcus stepped closer. "On the contrary, I found exactly what I came for. I just needed you to show your hand. Now you have." Just then, Liam appeared inside the doorway, leaning on his cane but standing tall. Marcus dipped his head when he saw him. Well, a familiar face. "So you're alive." Without a word, Liam moved to stand by Elisa. Marcus shrugged. "People like you should be left to the wild. The forest knows what to do. But I see some folks are stubborn about staying alive." Elisa's voice was cold as ice. "This land isn't yours. Neither your judgments nor your guns mean anything here." "Maybe so," Marcus replied, not backing down. "But when I go back to town, I'll have a story to tell. A white woman feeding the Comanche, protecting them. And when children go missing in town, can you guess who they'll blame?" Liam stepped forward. "Enough." Marcus turned to him with mock surprise. "Oh, so you can talk. Great. Turns out your tongue is as long as ours." At that moment, the whistle of an arrow came from inside the woods. It thudded into the tree next to Marcus. 3 Comanche warriors melted out of the forest, eyes burning, steps silent as the snow. For the first time, Marcus stepped back. "I guess that's all for now," he said, voice shaking. "But this story isn't over. Next time, we'll come back in numbers with the law." Elisa watched him, never breaking eye contact, as if even a single word might bring the whole cabin down in flames. Once Marcus left, the air inside the cabin changed. A threat heavier than winter's cold settled over them. This was no longer nature's war, but one brought by men. A quiet reckoning had begun. That night, Liam came quietly to sit beside Elisa. She sat by the stove, hands stretched to the fire, eyes unmoving. "You have history with him," Liam said. Elisa bowed her head. "He never stood up for me. Not then, not now. He's only here to pass sentence." Liam sat down on the floor. "In our tribe, we listen to a person's enemy to know who they really are. Your enemy is a frightened man. That tells me a lot." Elisa closed her eyes. "Soon the town will come, with laws and fire." Liam moved closer. "Then we have to be ready, but not with anger, with what's right." She turned to him, her eyes locking onto his for the first time. "And you, are you going to stay?" Liam didn't answer. He just did something. He took the axe down from the wall, went out, and brought in firewood. Then he stoked the stove again, poured hot willow bark tea into her cup. When he returned, he sat directly across from her. "I'm already staying," he said. "But the real question is, can we stand together?" That night, snow began to fall again outside. But this time, the silence felt heavy, not like gunpowder, but like solidarity. Every snowflake, a warning of the conflict approaching. And inside, 2 solitudes, for the first time, began to form a true front. All night, the wind didn't let up. The roof creaked, and the smoke from the chimney drifted apart before it could reach the sky. Inside, Elisa and Liam sat quietly together, not looking at each other, but not apart either. They waited in the glow of the fire. With the first light of dawn, Elisa stepped outside. Snow had fallen again in the night. Every step she took left a fresh mark. But at the edge of the forest, There were new tracks hoof prints, deep prints from heavy boots and broken branches. It felt as if even nature was disturbed by these newcomers. Elisa hurried back inside. "They're coming," she said, her voice low but sharp. Liam walked to the door, holding his cane like a weapon. "We can run," he said. "It's not too late." Elisa shook her head. "I've run my whole life. Now I have to stand here for this land, for this silence." At that moment, muddy boots thudded outside the door. Then a steel-hard fist slammed against it. "Open up, Elisa," Marcus shouted. "This time we're taking the one inside with you. If you resist, there'll be consequences." Liam picked up the axe from beside the stove. Elisa grabbed her small rifle. But this wasn't a fight. It was a stand. Elisa opened the door. Marcus stood there with 5 men behind him, some with rifles slung over their shoulders, all with fury in their eyes. Marcus didn't get off his horse, but his words were like poison. "What did I tell you? Stay away," I said. "But what did you do? You hid an enemy in your home. That's treason." Elisa stepped forward. "I betrayed no one. I saved a person's life." "A person?" Marcus spat. "Him? He's one of those who burned our borders, stole our horses, spilled our blood." Just then, a whistle sounded from the woods. Shadows slipped between the trees. Comanche warriors, silent as ever. At their head was a knock, and behind him, the elder Taylor. Their horses moved across the snow, silent but steady, coming right up to the cabin this time. Taylor didn't speak at first, but then he dismounted and stepped up to Elisa. Marcus shouted in anger. "What's this now? Did you call them to? This land is still ours." Taylor stood in front of Elisa, turned his eyes to Marcus, and spoke for the first time. "This woman saved my son's life. She carried him, healed him, and she treated him with us with respect. This land is not yours. These mountains belong to those who listen to silence." Fuming, Marcus got down from his horse. "The law will settle this." One of his men raised a rifle, but before he could aim, an arrow from the trees knocked it from his hands. A second arrow thudded into the ground by Marcus's boots, a silent but unyielding warning. Liam dropped his axe and moved behind Elisa, but didn't step in front of her. This was her fight. His hand hovered near her back, ready if she needed him. Elisa took a step forward, locking eyes with Marcus. "I've only ever wanted peace on my land. You brought war. But here, what's in your heart matters more than what's in your hands. And in my heart, there's no fear anymore." For a moment, Marcus hesitated. His eyes darted around. The Comanche warriors surrounded him, watching in silence. For the first time, he truly looked alone. He took a step back. "This isn't over," he said. "Next time will be more. And then, there'll be no one to stop us." The elder leader raised his head. "Every time you come, you leave another footprint beneath the snow. But this land remembers every mark. And so do we." Marcus withdrew with his men. No stones, no arrows followed them. But that silence, that was the heaviest answer of all. When they were gone, Elisa dropped to her knees, breath coming short and fast. Her shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. Liam knelt beside her, bowed his head, and gently took her hand. "Is it over?" Elisa whispered. Liam shook his head. "No, but you're not alone anymore." At that moment, the gathered tribe formed a silent circle in front of the cabin. It wasn't a victory, but a ceremony of acceptance. And for the first time, Elisa felt herself standing inside a circle where she belonged, bloodstained, still afraid inside, but not alone. In that moment, neither woman nor man stood at the center of this story. This was a story about a resolve that goes beyond survival. The snow had started to melt. The earth was finally shedding its frozen armor, drawing in the first breath of spring. The shadows in the forest grew shorter, and the sky turned a brighter shade of blue. But there was another change inside Elisa's cabin. It wasn't just a life that lived there anymore, but a new rhythm. Each morning, Liam chopped wood. His legs still ached, but he never complained. Every day, he grew a little stronger. Elisa had rearranged the cabin shelves, steadied, herbal teas lined up, worn fabric curtains sewn for the windows. Every corner now held not traces of loneliness, but the marks of days spent together. But most importantly, the tribe hadn't left. Taylor and his people set up their tents at the edge of the forest. Every day, a few women visited Elisa's cabin, cooking together or sitting in gentle, companionable silence. Children carried dry grass to Elisa's goats in the yard, sometimes looking at her, and smiling shyly. The house, once something to be avoided, was now approached with care, just like Elisa herself. One day, Taylor's wife, her name was Anela, knocked at the door. She carried a soft package. When Elisa invited her in, Anela sat quietly at the table. When the package was unwrapped, it revealed an embroidered shoulder shawl. The colors shimmered in Elisa's eyes like a slowly flickering light: red, gray, green. And at the center, a bird stitched in black thread. "It's given to you," Anela said. "In our tradition, it means a person has chosen their own path, not just accepted come by her own steps." Elisa held the shawl in her hands, speechless for a moment. Then she bowed her head. "I still don't know exactly where I belong," she said. Anela nodded. "No one knows the moment spring arrives, but the earth knows, and so do you." That evening, a fire was lit not for battle, but for celebration. In a clearing surrounded by tree branches, people gathered. There were no speeches around the fire, only songs. Deep, old melodies, soft as the burdens they carried. For the first time, Elisa sat among the women of the tribe. Taylor glanced at her, then dipped his head in greeting. Liam sat on the edge of the fire, eyes watching Elisa, hands carving a piece of wood. When Elisa came to him, Liam looked up and held out his carving. "An eagle. You can carry it," he said. "But don't forget to look at the sky." Elisa smiled. "Why always birds?" Liam turned his eyes to the fire. "Because you never asked for wings, but you always found a way to fly." That night, when they returned to the cabin, the stars stitched a quiet tapestry across the sky. Inside, Elisa rekindled the fire. Liam stood behind her close. So close. He didn't reach for her, but his voice vibrated in her chest. "You gave me life. But more than that, you gave me direction." Elisa turned. "And you gave me a reason." In that moment, there was no distance left between them. They didn't embrace. They didn't kiss. But it was a promise, a silent vow, made without grand words. The next morning, Elisa stepped outside. As the sun rose between the trees, the tents were slowly being taken down. The tribe was moving on, but one person remained. Before mounting his horse, Taylor approached Elisa one last time. "This land now carries your name too," he said. "But from now on, it will not be eyes that watch you, but children who look up to you." He turned and rode off with the others. And Liam? He didn't go anywhere. The two of them stood in front of the cabin, quietly gazing at the forest. Elisa took the eagle carving from her pocket, lifted it to the sky. Sunlight flashed off the wood, reflecting into her eyes. "This is just a beginning, isn't it?" she whispered. Liam nodded. "Only the first part of the story. And how will the second part go?" Liam took her hand. "We'll write it together." And so it began. From a life buried under the silence of snow, into the birth of a new season. A woman, a man, and a home that was no longer alone. If you found meaning in this silence, if this journey touched you too, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the greatest changes begin with a single act of kindness.